The demand for testers in today's market is at the highest it has ever been. And if your plan is to foray into the IT industry, or in particular the testing domain, then this is the best time. And on that note, I would like to congratulate you all for enrolling into Edureka's Selenium training course. My name is Vardhan, and I will be your instructor for today. So, without wasting any time, let me go on and show you what will be the topics that we will be covering in today's Selenium training. So, I'll first start off today's session by talking about the pain points of manual testing. Why and what are the problems, and why we need to go for automation testing, right? I will talk about the advantages of automation testing. And after that, I will give you an introduction to Selenium and compare it with other tools and tell you why Selenium is the best and what are the other tools in the market that are actually out there. And I'll then conclude today's session with probably the best part, where I will be showing you a demonstration of Selenium WebDriver in action, right? So that's one of the best testing tools out there, and I'll be showing you a demonstration of that. And I can see that there are a couple of people in the session. I can see Rakesh, I can see Dheeraj, I can see Abhay there. So guys, give me a heads up if it's all cool and we can start with the session, all right? So yep, I have a thumbs up from everyone. So perfect. Let me go and get started with the first topic, and that is, what are the pain points of manual testing? Now for that, let's presume this scenario where, what you have is Alex. What you see in front of you is Alex on the screen, okay? And she is a tester. And now she's a manual tester, and let's see what happens in her day-to-day tasks. So as a manual tester, you might have to probably write the test cases from scratch, which you will have to do even if you're an automation tester. Okay, so nothing wrong there. But then the problem is, the test cases that you write, you will have to execute them manually one after the other. And in case you have 1,000 test cases in your pipeline for your probably which tests your company's website, right? Probably 1,000 test cases. Then you have to execute each and every test case manually on your own, one after the other. If you have to execute 1,000 test cases, now the biggest problem is you cannot execute that many easily, right? In a day, you can probably execute 50 to 60. I would say that's the maximum you can. And if it's that number, then it would take you almost 10 days to complete the execution of just these 1,000 test cases, right? Now that's insane. You cannot afford so much of time given to such a minute task, right? You cannot do that. And also you'll have to analyze the pass or the fail statuses manually of every test case and note it down and make sure there's no error or discrepancies in data. You should do that manually, correct? Now those are again the challenges. But besides that, you will have to debug your errors if you find any, right? But that again is not a challenge with just manual testing. But anyways, it's still a challenge, right? Humans are error prone. These are the challenges with manual testing. What happens for someone like Alice who's working in the industry? But if the same Alice is a tester, but an automation tester this time, if she's using tools like Selenium, then yeah, she'll be writing the test cases from scratch. But what comes next is that the 10-day task is suddenly an overnight task, right? And it's not even your task because you run it on automation once and then every test case will get executed on its own. That's why it's called automation testing. If you have 1,000 test cases, then probably before you leave home at 8 p.m. in the night, that time you can start the execution of the test script. And if you just run that particular test suite, right, then your job is sorted. So all your test cases, you can call it through your test suite. You can put it in one test suite and execute it all together. And you don't have to intervene after that. Just put it on test and wait for the result. So you can do it in the night before you go home, and then in the morning when you come back to office, you can just check if your test case is passed or failed, or where your bug is, what could be made better. All these things you can analyze in a very nice way. And you can analyze in a very comfy way because the report that gets generated is again automatic. So you get it generated through Selenium or TestNG, which is used with Selenium, and you will get the results, and it will be in a very nice way, in a very structured way that you'll not have problems reading it or understanding your data, right? But of course, you'll have to spend time for debugging errors. Now, the difference that you see here, it's a very small task, right? Execution, but see how much time it takes. You can finish probably a fortnight's task overnight. And that's amazing if you can reduce the time for testing by that number, correct? So that's one of the advantages with automation testing. Now, let me just talk a little more about the advantages of automation testing. And let me talk about the other points here. The first point is that it saves time. I just told you that. Second, it reduces the cost to company. Now, when we say cost to company, then they will have to spend 10 days, right? They'll have to pay people for 10 days, work on a tool for 10 days. So there's a delay there, and that is a cost to a company in one way or the other. And if you can reduce so much to so little time, then you are doing amazing business. I mean, you're running the business in a very nice way. That's a very good thing for you. And of course, it's more accurate, right? Selenium or any testing tool for that matter, the results that you get is pretty accurate, at least more accurate than manual testing, because yes, humans tend to make errors, right? They are error prone. So sometimes it might just happen that they have written something wrong and something wrong comes up. So that's one point. Of course, the next point is you have quality in your reports also. The reports that get generated automatically, even they are in a very structured way, which you can easily understand. There are pretty much no errors, like I told you. And the best part is they are repeatable. And you won't have any problem doing that if you want to repeat it from scratch. The same thing cannot be said for manual testing, right? So those were the advantages, and that's how Alice is having a very nice time as an automation tester in the market. And that's why you need to go for automation testing, right? So guys, would you agree with me? Anybody in the session who thinks that they do not need to go for automation testing? Abe? Okay, so no one, right? Very good. So I'm getting good responses. Now let me go ahead then and talk about how Selenium compares with other tools. Because before I talk about what exactly is Selenium, and before I give you an introduction to Selenium in itself, I will let you compare it with three other tools in the market. Okay, and those three tools are HP's QTP, IBM's RFT, and Test Complete. Right now, these three are probably Selenium's biggest competitors, and let's see how they fare head on head. So first and foremost, if you want to use the tool, you got to have a license, right? You should be able to download it and use it. With QTP, RFT, and Test Complete, you need a license. You have to pay for that license. You cannot use it for free. That maybe companies can afford to use this, but individual developers, aspiring programmers, they cannot use it. So if you are an individual who is learning Selenium, you can do it because Selenium is open source. But if you're learning other tools, then you wouldn't be able to do that. Okay. Second point is the cost. QTP, RFT, and Test Complete are of course costly because they are proprietary tools. But Selenium is free, open source. So 2 points for Selenium over there. Okay. Now moving on to the third point, that is customer support. Yeah, QTP and RFT and Test Complete fare better because they're a proprietary tool. They have a dedicated customer support. And then in Selenium, yes, you again have a customer support, but that's from an open source community. And because it's from open source community, it's not going to be as quick or as efficient as your dedicated customer support, right? So that's one drawback, but don't worry, there's a huge developer community out there that will help you. Okay. And talking about the coding skills for QTP and RFT, it's not that much needed that you need to be a programmer. Okay. And Test Complete is a little important because Test Complete is like Selenium, where it tests basically web applications, right? So for testing the web applications, you need some skills. For Test Complete is high, but for Selenium, it's a little more. Okay. And then speaking of environment support, QTP and RFT work only on Windows, and the same with Test Complete also. But Test Complete again is limited to these versions like 7, Vista, Server 2008, or any of the later operating systems. Okay, that's Test Complete for you. But Selenium works on all three major platforms: Windows, Linux, and Mac, and that's a big advantage because all the free BSD users out there, all the folks that belong to that category, then you're going to have a nice time because you can use Selenium on your Linux also. Because there are a lot of people out there who are working on your Linux, right? So if you work for a startup and you plan to implement Selenium over there, then you might be given Linux machines on which you have to work with Selenium. And of course, Linux is the tool to grow with, right? As technical people, Linux is the platform which you have to use. So one more point for Selenium over there, right? And the I would say the biggest advantage that Selenium gains is that it can attract people from different programming backgrounds. So look at QTP, for example. QTP, you have to have VB script skills. So people are limited there, right? Same thing with Java and C Sharp. If you're from these two backgrounds only, you can work on RFT, right? But see, with Test Complete, you have a few more options. You have VB script, you have JavaScript, Delphi script, C++, and C Sharp. Okay. But with Selenium, you have a better set of options, right? You have Java and Python, two of the biggest programming languages in today's market. And then you have C Sharp, Perl, PHP, and Ruby, right? So if you're programmers and if you're developers or coders from these backgrounds, then you can definitely start a career in Selenium, right? So that's what you can do. And that's why I would say Selenium is the best over there. So any of you have any doubts here at this time? Anybody in the session? Okay, so you have a very valid question here. So Abhijit is asking me, if Selenium is so advantageous, why are there even other tools in the market? Because there will not be of any challenge against Selenium. Well, Abhijit, the thing is, Selenium, yes, it's free and it's advantageous, but there are certain drawbacks also. Like for instance, Selenium cannot test desktop applications. Okay, it can only test web applications, and that's where QTP and RFT dominate the market. For desktop applications, if you want to test the software, then that's where their business comes in. Test complete for you can be used for everything, for both. So that's test complete's USP. And with Selenium, yeah, that's what you know. But still, Selenium is the most dominating tool in the market. All right. So let me go to the next slide then. So like promised, now let's talk about Selenium in particular. So how it fares as an automation testing tool and what it has to offer. First of all, you have to remember that Selenium is a tool to automate web applications and web applications only. Web pages or web applications, we can call it either of these. And it should be these across different platforms using different programming languages. So first of all, Selenium is a tool to automate web pages or applications. Okay. The key point to note is it's a tool to automate only web pages or web applications, and these tests across different platforms using different programming languages. Now, what this means is I can use any of the platforms like Windows or Mac or Linux, and I can write my code in one of those 6 programming languages that I spoke about earlier, and you can run your tests. So you can leverage Selenium for testing that particular web page. And of course, it's open source and mainly used for functional testing, because functional testing is probably the most common type of testing. Everyone has to do testing, and they have to follow functional testing. And Selenium is known for its reliable performance and execution speed because it's been in the market for quite some time. Okay, it's been more than 10 years that Selenium has been in the market, and it has a huge Google backed, Apache backed developer community that works on developing Selenium, right? So you have a number of versions, and yeah, it's pretty impressive to say the least. And I would say it's the best tool for testing web applications. That's my opinion. And according to a lot of people, I may be wrong. But yeah, this is my take. And that is the reason why Selenium has the biggest share in the market. Okay, that's about Selenium. Now, here I'm just going to summarize a couple of points I spoke about earlier. If you guys didn't listen, then listen up closely. Programming languages like Java, Python, Perl, PHP, Ruby, C Sharp, all these programming languages can be used to write your Selenium code and test your web page through Selenium. Okay, all these programming languages. So if you are from any of these backgrounds, then you have a chance to start a career in Selenium right away. Okay, no hesitations whatsoever. And then speaking of operating systems, you can use one of either Windows or Mac or Linux. Okay, so even for testing Android applications, you have APM, which is pretty similar to Selenium. Okay, but it's nowhere the same. And of course, on the operating systems, you will be using the browsers, right? So you can use any of the popular browsers like Internet Explorer, Firefox, Google Chrome and Opera, Safari, and probably more, right? You can use all these browsers. And yeah, that's the big benefit, I would say. No dependencies, no hesitations, nothing. But like the story is always never complete, like that, we have disadvantages also in Selenium, right? So that's what we're gonna see here. Let's first see the advantages. Let me summarize those advantages. First is it's open source and easy to set up. It supports various operating systems, and I can just use one of them, right? Even if I have Windows or if I have Linux, I have no hesitation. I can use it straight away. And then it supports various programming environments. Absolutely, environments. When we say environments, it's the programming languages on which you can use to code. You have comfort there, and it supports parallel test execution. That means that you can run multiple tests simultaneously in the same machine or in a cluster of machines. So you have that advantage with Selenium. Okay, but some of the disadvantages are that there is limited support for image testing or for desktop testing. For testing your desktop applications, there's a no-go. But if you want to test images on your web pages or your websites, then yes, you have limited support though. You don't have complete support. It's not very easy. You can use Sequoia or AutoIT for doing that. And then speaking of the other thing is it supports only web applications, and it takes a lot of time to create your test scripts because a lot of programming skills is needed over here, and it's a little tough task to learn Selenium and start off with Selenium first, right? So those are your challenges. But as long as you are interested in learning it, it's going to be easy for you. Okay, so worry not. So now that you know about the advantages and disadvantages, let me talk about the components in the Selenium suite of tools. So we have a suite of Selenium tools, and we have IDE, we have Grid, we have RC, and we have WebDriver. Okay, these are the four popular flavors of Selenium, you can say. So Selenium IDE is the tool which is basically used to record your interactions that you have on your web browser. Okay, so whatever interactions you have, that can be recorded as a test case, and then it can be later modified or replayed again to perform that same test. Okay, so that's how IDE works. It does not have a programming interface. It's a plugin which is used, and you'll have to record your actions that you do, which website you go to, what you perform. You have to record it, and then later you can replay it. Okay, you can play back that particular recording. Okay, so and then you have Selenium RC. So RC was the earlier version of WebDriver where you can programmatically create your test scripts. Okay, that's how Selenium started. That is the first flavor of Selenium, and you can program your code. But then RC has a lot of disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage being that it's pretty slow. Okay, and it's a little tough to execute it because of various protocol reasons. And then came Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so WebDriver, which we use nowadays, is their flagship tool. Okay, and you can write your test scripts manually. You have to do it manually, and you should use your programming skills to write your test cases on different languages maybe, and you'll be dealing with a lot of libraries, a lot of functions, all these things, right? With Selenium, that's what you'll be doing. And then comes Selenium Grid. Now Selenium Grid is the tool which is used to deploy your tests on remote machines. Now earlier I told you that you can execute multiple test cases parallelly on the same machine. That's just one half of it. You can also execute a test or a couple of test cases in a cluster of machines. You can have 2-3 machines connected as nodes, and you can deploy your test on all of those machines, 3 different machines. And the advantage being that you can basically test your code at the same time across different platforms like Windows or Mac or Linux. You can execute those test cases there and on different browsers in those particular platforms, operating systems. So that's what Grid is used for. So it's not a testing tool on itself, but it just helps WebDriver work. Now that is about the introduction that you need as of today for the different suites of Selenium. Now let me not bore you with any more theory. And right now I would want to go to the best part of this particular session. And when I say best part, it's going to be fun because I'll be using my keyboard and be writing a program for you, and I'll show you a demonstration of how Selenium works. Okay, so for that, let me first open up my Eclipse. All right. So I've just cleared my Eclipse over here. So I've just created one class here. Okay, I've created one sample class file. But anyways, I'll start a new Java class. I'll show you how to script from the beginning. Okay. Now I'm guessing that you people are aware of basic programming concepts. So I'll not go into the basics here. I will first straight away start off by creating a Java class, a new Java class, and I will give you an introduction to Selenium by writing a very sample basic code which you can understand for the first day. Okay, just to give you an idea of what Selenium is all about. So this is my package. Let me just right click on new after that and say create a new class for me. Okay, there's the package name, and the name of the class I want to give is intro class. All right, this is the first class of this training program, right? Yep, intro class, and let me say finish. Okay, perfect. I have a public class here. Okay, so first of all, how do we start writing our program? We have to import a few packages, right? We have to first have our Selenium jars ready and present. Now for that, if you people are again newbies, then let me go through the procedure to add your jars. So you have to download Selenium from the internet. I mean, you can download it for free from Selenium's website. So I would request you to download all the jars from there first, and then download the different browser drivers. If you want to perform your test on Chrome driver, then you have to download Chrome driver from there. Okay, and if you want to perform your test on Mozilla Firefox, then you will have to download Gecko driver from the internet, and similarly for Internet Explorer, it's going to be IE driver. And if you want to perform your tests or execute them on the cloud on your servers, then you can use headless browser. Okay, you can use one of these. You can do all these things. So you can download it basically from the internet, and it's for free. You can download it from Apache's website itself. So you just need to put in Selenium downloads and open the first link that comes here. The latest version is 3.110. Go ahead, click on that, and Selenium would be downloaded, and you have to extract that particular folder and get all the jars inside. Okay, so once you have your jars, what you have to do is you should have Eclipse pre-configured with Java at this point of time, and you have to import your Selenium jars to these Java jars which is present and which Eclipse is using. Okay, and how you add jars to your basically to your project, you have to right click over here. Okay, that's your project, That's your project directory. Click on build path, click on configure build path from here, and over here you should come to libraries, okay, this tab, and over here you have to click on add external jars, and then you can choose it here. So I already have it, so you can see it over here, okay. But if you're doing it for the first time, click on add external jars, and then choose all your jars. Choose the folder where your Selenium jars are downloaded. It would look like this. Then just choose all by Control A, and then click on open, and they would all be added over here, okay. So you should have all your server jars, server standalone jars, and all your jars which Selenium needs. And when you do that, click on apply and click on OK. Then your jars are present, and then you can start writing your Selenium script straight away. Now I want to start my script, so I'll first start off by creating a main class, okay, a main method inside this class of mine. So let me say public static void main. Public because I want it to be accessible from everywhere globally, and static because I want to create memory space automatically, that a Java class which has a static main program defined, then that has memory allocated dynamically to it, okay. So that's what static does. Public static void because it's indication that there's no return type. It will not be returning, it will not be receiving any parameters, okay. And public void main, okay. So I have a spelling mistake here. Let me change it to MAIN. Okay. Now here at this point of time, before you do anything on Selenium, right? Before you open your browser, before you invoke your web browser, and before you do anything on that particular web browser, like calling a website, you have to first tell your program where exactly your Chrome driver is present, because the Chrome driver is the one that's gonna make your browser do something. So for me, it's going to be Chrome driver because I'm going to execute the test on Chrome. So I'm using a Chrome driver. If you're executing this program on a Firefox, Mozilla Firefox browser, then you have to download Gecko driver and invoke your Gecko driver. You have to first say where your Gecko driver is present. Okay, and for that, we have to set the system properties. Okay, so look at the command that I type on the screen now. So let's say system.set property. So I have to first say what I'm going to invoke. Okay, after that I have to say the path where my Chrome driver is present. So I'll first say WebDriver dot Chrome dot driver. Okay, and this of course has to be in double quotation marks. I'm saying I want to work with Chrome driver, and then I have to specify the path where my Chrome driver is present. So the path where my Chrome driver is present is over here because I downloaded this only today. So I'm going to copy this. Chrome had basically outdated, and I had to basically download an updated version of Chrome driver. So I just did it some time back, and let me again put that in double quotes. Okay, now remember, if you're using Windows, then you have to put double backslashes everywhere. Okay, because that is how Eclipse understands things. Okay, and now I have to say the application, right? Chrome driver dot exe, because that's what it's called, Chrome driver. Okay, so this is what is invalid. All right, so I've told my program where my Chrome driver is present. Now that I've told it, I have to first create a new object instance of a class. Okay, so there's already an inbuilt class of WebDriver which will perform the actions. I have to just use that particular class. So let me create an object to run that particular class, and let me create a new object called WebDriver, and let me give the name driver for my WebDriver is equal to new Chrome driver because I want to use Chrome driver. Okay, so at this point of time it's showing errors because when you're doing it for the first time, you would not have imported any packages. So I have to import these packages because they are the libraries that contain what my WebDriver should do. Okay, so all the functions and all the classes are written there, so I'm importing that package by clicking on this. Okay, so as you can see, it says import org.openqa.selenium.webdriver. So all my WebDriver related commands are now imported, and now I can use WebDriver. Okay, so earlier I was getting that error, and now if you notice on Chrome driver, it's again showing me an error. For that, I have to click on this import Chrome driver because with this library package, I download all the functions which are related to Chrome driver. Now my code is perfect, so it's a warning, but anyways, when I write my WebDriver commands, it will be fine. So now that you've actually said what your driver is and where it's present, you have to straight away say which URL you want to start testing on. Okay, but before that, if you're doing it for the first time, then it's fine. Okay, but if you're a guy that already regularly works on browser drivers, then it's very important that you clear on your browser cache. Okay, so for that we have this command called driver dot manage dot delete all cookies. So you got to use this command to basically delete all the browser cookies that you have. And also you should note that when Selenium uses Chrome driver to open the browser, then Chrome is not in full screen. So if you want Selenium in full screen, the test to be visible in full screen, then you got to use this command which I'm about to type. Okay, but otherwise it's not a big deal that having a smaller screen. So I would say for that, I would run that command again, driver dot manage dot window dot full screen. Okay, or you can also run the command maximize. Okay, this would maximize your window screen. So now you've done all the other things which you need to get Selenium running with. You've set your browser. So by now it's time to go ahead and write your code for testing. So let's say I want to test Amazon.in. Okay, so Amazon is a very famous e-commerce portal. Right now, if I want to probably do some testing there, what would I do? Okay, so first of all, I would say I would tell my browser driver to get to that particular URL. So the command for that is driver.get, and in brackets I have to say the address where I want to go. So first of all, let me get Amazon's URL. Okay, so let's say amazon.in. Okay, so amazon.in, right? So I'm going to copy this URL here and I'm going to put it in my code. Okay, driver.get. Okay, so once I reach here, what should I do next? What kind of web application testing are we talking about, right? So what kind of web page testing are we doing here? Let me anyways just open it in incognito. Okay, so let's say I want to go to amazon.in, and what kind of testing are we talking about? We are talking about testing like clicking on a particular image or on a particular button. Okay, you have certain links, so clicking on those links, checking if they are working or not, right? So probably clicking on this field over here and trying to send text over here, type something, right? And then click on search, and then continue searching. And so that's basically the agenda of my test, right? So that's what I want to do. So let's do the same thing. So let's say that I want to first get to this search bar and then put in something here, send some text, and then click on search. Okay, let's say that's what I want to do. Okay, that's a good first day session for you people. Okay, so if I want to do it, how will I do it? Okay, so for doing that, you have to first of all identify what is the ID of that particular web element. Okay, I wouldn't say just ID because there are 7 other techniques called XPath, then we have CSS, then we have by name, by class. So we have a couple more like that. So you can find those web elements in that way, and then you can do whatever action you want to perform. If you want to click on it, you can do that. If you want to send some text, you can do that. You can do whatever you want. If it's drop down or a radio button, you can still handle it very easily. But in our case, we want to find this particular search bar and send text to it. So to find this particular web element, let's first do a Control-Shift-I, okay? And we'll have to inspect all the web elements over here. So this is your tab which comes with Chrome and with Firefox and pretty much every other browser. Okay, Control-Shift-I, that's the shortcut. Or you can also do this, inspect. And over here, click on this button over here, which would let you choose one of your web elements. So let's say this is my web element I want to choose. So if I click on this web element, then it's pointing me over here. So this is the HTML line of code which contains the properties and basically the name of this particular web element. And it has various fields. It has the ID field, which means that this is the ID for this particular web element, and then you have a name for it, the value name, that is this. You have a couple more. Okay, now let's say I want to use ID to locate this particular web element. Okay, so I'll copy this and I have to go back to my script and write the line of code to identify this particular web element using this particular ID of it. And the command to do that is first call your driver object and the classes which are present over here. Say driver dot not get, it's driver dot find element because it's a web element you're trying to find. Okay, now you have to say how do you want to find it based on what ID or name or XPath or CSS what. So in our case it's ID, because if you remember from here we are choosing the ID property, right? So this is the property, this is the value. So I'm copying this value here. I'm going to say by dot ID, the third option over here. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter, and here I have to put the value of my ID. So this is my value. Okay, this is the ID, and I would like to actually not close this line because here I've done the find element by ID. Okay, now what do I do after that? What kind of an action would I want to do on this particular web element after doing it? In my case, I would want to send some text. So let's say I want to type in Nike shoes and perform a search. So the text I have to send over here to this box is Nike shoes, right? So let's enter that text over here. So for that, you have the option of send keys. Okay, so click on send keys, and over here in double quotes, say what you want to basically type over there. I want to type in Nike shoes in this format. Okay, so I'll send the keys and then I'll close this line, okay, with a semicolon. I'll end the line. And for doing that, I have to click on this particular button, right? So if I want to click on this particular button, let me again inspect this particular element and find out what is the values. So if you can see here, we have the input, we have class name, we have value, and we have tab index. But we don't really have what is important for us for Selenium to find, okay? We don't have ID or name. So in this case, what we'll do is we'll use an XPath, because XPath is one of the best ways to find out the absolute address of that particular web element, okay? Because XPath is the most ideal way you should use, but you have some easier ones like by ID or by name. So we earlier used by ID, but this time let me show you XPath and show you how it's done the XPath way. So if I want to first of all find the XPath, I'll have to click on this, right click, and then Chrome gives you an option to copy the XPath from here straight away. So click on copy the XPath, go back to your Eclipse, go back to your program, and then put it over here. Okay, so first the command for that is driver dot find element by, I want it by XPath, and the expression is going to be this. Okay, but this might not work because I have to pass in the absolute XPath. Relative XPath sometimes doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is I will open it through Firefox. Okay, so I have Amazon already open over here, right? Through Firefox it's open. So let me first locate or find out the XPath from here. So I can easily inspect this particular web element with Firefox. Okay, it's easier to do it in Firefox and copy the actual XPath. So let's again click it properly this time, and this is that particular element, right? So I'm going to right click, copy, click on XPath, and this time let me paste it over here, and let's check if I have the absolute HTML path. Yes, I have the absolute XPath, right, in HTML format, starting from the root. So this is good enough for me for Eclipse to find this particular web element. And once it's found, I don't want to just end it there. I want to click on that particular button. So I'll say dot click. Okay, last time I sent the keys, this time I'm clicking it. So because this is the search option, and when I'm done with it, I would like to basically wait for some time for Chrome to finish doing the actions, because your web applications are sometimes they are heavy on the browsers, right? So it takes time to load. If your net is slow, then it will take time to load. And at such times when the net is slow, if your testing is happening and if your browser is not able to locate that particular web element, then your test case would fail. So it's very important that you use waits, okay? And waits are used for page synchronization, for making sure your WebDriver waits until all the elements in your web page have loaded, or probably until all the web elements are available at least for performing actions with. Okay, and in our case we'll use one of the implicit wait statements, which is to basically tell driver to hold on until my browser loads. And the command for me to do that is again driver dot manage, because the manage package again does a lot of things for me with respect to the browser. Okay, dot timeouts dot implicitly wait. Okay, so there are three types of waits: implicit wait, explicit wait, fluent wait. And leaving these three types of waits, we have another technique called thread.sleep. So you can use these function calls, and I've used implicit wait, which is the common one, where I will say I want to implicitly wait for this much amount of time before the driver throws an error that a particular element is not found. So if I say 30 seconds over here, implicitly wait for 30 seconds, then it means that driver will wait for 30 seconds to find my particular web element, and even after 30 seconds, if it can't find the web element, only then it will throw an error. Okay, so that is this particular command. So I'm going to say 30 over here, and over here I have to say what is the unit, whether it's 30 in seconds or 30 in minutes. I have to communicate that. So we can simply say time unit. Okay, this is for me to set my time unit dot. I have options here, and I need to choose 30 seconds. And remember, this has to be again in double quotes. Actually, it's not needed, right? So 30 time unit dot 30 seconds. And that's it. So my code is almost ready. I'm going to ask my driver to wait for 30 seconds. So after this point, I can run my final command, which is nothing but driver.quit. Okay, so if I don't want to do anything more, then I can just simply use driver.quit, because since it's your first training session on Selenium, I would like to stop it over here because otherwise it'd be a little too much for you people to take in. So I would say driver.quit and close my browser and end my testing per se. Okay, now that's your introduction to Selenium, and that's how simple it is to code. Okay, now let me quickly go ahead and complete this demo by running execution. Okay, first save this, Control S, and then so after that, straight away just click on this play button. That should start your execution. So that's Chrome that's come up, and as per the first command, it's supposed to maximize, and there we go, it has maximized. That is Amazon.in for you. You have the search bar where Nike shoes is typed, search button's clicked on, and I think it's going to stop here for 30 seconds, right? Yeah, so it was supposed to wait for 30 seconds until the web element is found, but it found it much earlier, so the execution was continued and the driver quit on its own, right? So those were my commands, and that was the demo, right? So that's how nice it is, that's how fun it is to execute Selenium test cases, okay? And you can also later on write a Selenium suite, okay, which will contain a number of Selenium test cases like this. You can call each of these test cases in that particular test suite and then just run it for execution in the night, and then you can go home, sleep, and get back the next day and then find out the test results for that particular test, right? So all these can be done, and that's what is the advantage with Selenium. Okay, so that's how simple it is. So on that note, I would like to end my demo for today and go back my slides and conclude today's session, right? So I had a good chat with you people, and I got good questions. Keep it up for those questions, guys. So we'll talk more about Selenium in the next training session, and we'll keep you posted about the date. But until then, guys, please do note that we have a YouTube channel, and you can go to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our channel, get to see all of the other videos. You can see the Selenium videos and videos on other technologies. You can like the videos. Please comment your doubts and queries if you have any. You can show your appreciation too, and share our videos, as we would say. And stay tuned to Edureka. This is Vardhan signing off. Thank you, and happy learning.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!